Sameach, everyone. We're about to usher in the last 48 hours of the holiday season, the grand finale. These are holy hours. What is accomplished on Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur through fasting, through Teshuvah, during this time we can accomplish that through joy, through Simcha. I want to encourage everyone to come out, celebrate Simchat Torah with us, and really feel that this is a personal Simcha. Sometimes I'll meet a Jew who says that the completion of the Torah in synagogue may not mean that much to me personally, may not have relevance to me. For you, I share this story because I want you to feel that this Simchas Torah is a Jewish holiday for every single Jew, regardless of how much Torah we study, how much of the year we were involved in the weekly Torah portion. That doesn't matter. Our bond to the Torah is essential, applies to every single one of us equally. I want us all to share in this holiday, and here is the story for you as we enter into these holy days. The story takes place at a dark time in Jewish history. It was in the 1940s where the Leiter family, Edward and Ernestine, were trying to get out. Sadly, they couldn't. They lived in Germany. And at that time, they and 7 other families were put together in one home in Stuttgart, Germany. Deportations were happening every single day. They took some of their valuables and hid it inside of this home, some jewelry, some money, and an ancient Tanakh. This was a volume, a beautiful volume with illustrations from the 1700s of the Tanakh, the 24 books of the Bible. And this, together with other valuables, they hid in the wall, hoping that perhaps they may one day come back and retrieve it. Sadly, they didn't. They perished in Treblinka. They did have one son that survived, Zali Leiter, and he married Susie. She was also a survivor. She was on the Kinder transport, and they come to America and they make a life for themselves. They have no idea about this Tanakh and the valuables that were hidden inside of the wall, and no one did for that matter. 50 years passed before someone purchased and was doing renovations in that home and discovers the treasures literally in this wall, in this secret closet somewhere. They pocket the money for themselves. When they see this Tanakh, they put it on eBay. And there was a Jew that noticed it. It seemed valuable. It seemed special. And they bought it. And they would have just kept it had they not noticed a postcard inside of it mentioning the family and a little bit about this book. And at that point, they started making phone calls. And on LinkedIn, they managed to contact a family member, now the grandson of these people who sadly perished in Treblinka. And they said, I have a book for you. Max, the grandson, passed away a few years ago, but his wife, Suri, is now 95 years old. She lives in Manhattan. And when she was told by her grandchild, Jacob, about this news, they got the Tanakh. And last year, 80 years and since, their great-grandparents sadly perished. This long-lost Tanakh was delivered to Jacob Leiter and his grandmother at this apartment in Manhattan. They held this beautiful Tanakh and they just wept. They felt that they were holding on to their ancestors, holding on to the loved ones. This was the closest that they would ever get to feeling them in their hands. On Simchas Torah, when we dance with the Torah, we are not just dancing ourselves, but we are dancing with every Jew for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, that loved and treasured and cherished the Torah and studied it and found meaning in it and found relevance in it. Every single Jew, no matter how much Torah we studied, how much we have or have not learned, should know that the walls of our house are saturated with 3,335 years of our family treasuring this book. And eventually, it will be discovered inside of our hearts. It will pop out. One of the things Hannah and I are very fascinated by these days is epigenetics, which is this idea that, God forbid, trauma and other things can be passed from one generation to another generation, and our generation might be dealing with the scars of something that a previous generation had. This is a leading idea right now in all sorts of psychology. But it not only applies for the negative, it applies for the positive as well. When we've had so many years of Jews cherishing the Torah, that faith, that study, that wisdom, that commitment, that is inside of us. It is inside of the walls of our house. It is part and parcel of us. The story of the Tanakh is the story of every single Jew, and especially we feel it on Simchat Torah. Rabbi Jonathan Sachs of blessed memory gave an incredible parable. He says, imagine you walked into a library and from the floor all the way to the ceiling, all around you were books. And you went to one book and you read for a few pages, and another book, every idea, every philosophy, every religion, everything was inside of this library. And you went from book to book to book, and you were reading it. And he says this is a little bit what life is like today, where we browse all the isms out there and all the cultures out there, and we are all living in a world that, thank God, is accepting and understanding of all types of people, and we browse these various perspectives and ways on life. And then imagine you come to a book, and this book has your family name on it, and you read about everything that happened to your family in your history. These are individuals that you know and that you have heard about, and all of their trials and all of their challenges and all of their successes. This is a very different kind of book. And you keep on reading, and then you come to another page, and this one is empty. It has a headline, but the contents of the page are empty, and there on the headline is your name. This is now your chapter. This is the way you will now participate in writing that next chapter in your story, in your family. This really isn't a metaphor. This is the story of the Jewish people. When we study the Torah, this is our book, our family's book for thousands and thousands of years. This is our Tanakh that is inside of the wall. And therefore, whether we have studied or have not studied Torah this year, that really is not the question, because it is inside of our hearts, it is inside of our souls, and on Simchat Torah we cherish, we treasure the essential bond each one of us have to the Torah. In fact, we don't even study the Torah, because once you open up, some understand it, some don't, some know the Hebrew, some don't. We hold it closed because on that level, we all have that same connection to this book. So I encourage all of you, especially tonight and tomorrow night, Simchat Torah, to dance with the Torah, to celebrate your connection to it. And more importantly, now is the time of year where we think about our commitment to studying this incredible book throughout the rest of the year. Because I believe that if we recognize it is our book, the contents will mean that much more to us. But for tonight and tomorrow night, it's not about studying. It's about dancing. Dancing how Am Yisrael Chai, thousands of years later, we are still connected to each other and to God with our holy Torah. Chag Sameach.